today's top story. While Vince McMahon's presence looms too large to ignore in WWE, I think almost everyone would be holding out hope that his recent return will be short-lived. Maybe the new Endeavor overlords would realize who they have placed as executive chairman of the company and give him the boot. As idyllic as that sounds, I'm going to squash those dreams right now, as unfortunately it looks like we've got Vince in charge for life. Well, his life, that is. Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics, in a very lengthy Twitter post regarding WWE's sale to Endeavor, Thurston would break down a timeline of how the deal came to be. While I won't break down the entire thing here and now, here's the shortest version possible. The initial merger proposal was made to WWE on February 7th, with Endeavor proposing a 57% stake, while WWE shareholders would get 43%. Then at March the 22nd meeting, a new term sheet would get placed on a negotiations table from WWE to Endeavor. And this is where it gets juicy. The new terms would see Endeavor gets a reduced 51% stake, while WWE would get an increased 49% from the original proposal. This would be reviewed by Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel and President Mark Shapiro, as well as their legal advisor Latham on March 23rd. Latham would then bounce back with a counter proposal in order to facilitate the 51-49% split. On one condition, that is that Vince McMahon would be placed as executive chair until death, resignation, or incapacity. My goodness. Separate from the deal, Vince would become a WWE employee again on March 28th for the first time since his resignation in July 2022. And then finally, the WWE Endeavor deal will be finalized at WrestleMania weekend just days later, and boom! Just like that, WWE got themselves a terminal diagnosis of Vinnie Mac. Like I said, there is a lot more that we didn't have time to include, so make sure you check out Brandon Thurston on Twitter as well as WrestleTalk.com. So Vince is at the helm of WWE for good, but what of the soon-to-be merged combat sports and entertainment juggernaut, the World Ultimate Wrestling, Fighting, Entertainment Championship? It could really do with an official company name that isn't a mouthful and accurately represents the two different products the two brands provide. Or how about Wales? That would work. Per a new SEC filing made yesterday, May 12th, the current name of the new company is indeed New Whale Inc., not even World Whale Entertainment. Come on guys, you wouldn't even need to change the initials. While this would be a glorious choice in my opinion, don't expect it to last, as the filing states that the registrant plans to change the name at a later date. While a massive bummer, hopefully the new name can also incorporate everyone's favorite large aquatic mammal as well. So, despite Vince's return, WWE is still technically in the Triple H creative era. However, as we saw during the awful Raw after WrestleMania, the 77-year-old's presence has certainly had an impact on WWE's product. Thankfully, things have not gotten quite as bad as that since. However, there has been a report of Triple H having to consult Vince via Zoom to confirm creative plans, meaning once again that he is the one with all the power. While Vince's presence has reportedly coincided with lower talent morale, what if many are instead actually glad McMahon is back in the mix? Well, according to Wade Keller on his PW Torch podcast, that may in fact be the case. According to Keller, there are some talents that are at least happy Vince was back contributing to creative, while Keller would specify that a lot of this is likely purely based on self-interest, with McMahon more likely to push them than Triple H would. Almost. Theory. Interestingly, Keller would also reveal a juicy perspective from a backstage WWE source, saying one person I asked said they would think that Vince McMahon is more focused on building strong baby faces and Paul Levesque has more of a focus and an interest in building heels. So maybe Vince is the yin to Triple H's yang. Maybe they can in fact coexist after all. Well, they're gonna bloody have to, as Vince is there to death do us part. Tempest, what is this crap?
What's causing all this, Sat?
What's causing all this trauma that I'm going through? But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, next up is the most beautiful man who covers himself up with a mask so you can see his beautiful blue eyes. It's time for a hot tag. For this lovely man, Tempest, get your sexy ass out of here. Last week they didn't even show a hot tag. No, you showed a hot tag. Yeah! And the lights go black.
I'm Tempest, and there will be no 1 minute, one take Rampage review because show was moved to Saturday night, presumably because of sports. So in its place, I merely have the recommendation that all of you should go out of your way to see Speedball Mike Bailey versus Hiromu Takahashi in the first day of the Best of the Super Juniors tournament. And with that being said, I'm Tempest, and this is my review of SmackDown in about 5 minutes. Now, we have already brought up how it does not make any sense for SmackDown dudes to be competing in this Raw Championship tournament, but you know what? Positivity wins out, because their inclusion just means that we got a few banging matches on this episode of SmackDown, and who am I to care about why we're getting good matches? We open SmackDown with our first of 2 triple threat matches as AJ Styles beat Edge and Rey Mysterio. This was an incredibly fun match, loads of great double team moves, or moves that would lead into other moves, a great sequence of finishing moves each being countered, eventually leading to AJ Styles hitting the phenomenal forearm on Edge for the win. I personally had thought and hoped that we might see Edge make it to the final, but excellent Twitter promos be damned. Edge instead countered the 619 only to be caught in the aforementioned phenomenal forearm by Styles for the pin. These are 3 of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and getting to see them tear it up on SmackDown was a pretty great way to start this show. We then went straight into our second triple threat match of the night as Bobby Lashley took down Austin Theory and Sheamus. This match was completely different from the previous one. That match was much more finesse and clever counters. This one was a fight. Sheamus and Lashley would put their differences aside to beat up Austin Theory from time to time, but just as Lashley had Theory in the Hurt Lock, Sheamus hit a brogue kick. Lashley was able to capitalize though, and he advanced to the SmackDown final in another very fun match. The key to shows like this is variety, and this SmackDown had it in spades immediately. Grayson Waller asked for his own talk show next week, which was granted, and then we had Cameron Grimes' main roster debut against Baron Corbin to the moon. Corbin cut a quick promo before the bell as he said Grimes would be wishing he was back in NXT, and then the bell rang and Grimes immediately hit the cave-in for the win. Hey, if I gotta see Baron Corbin on this show, a 7-second match is my preference. Boo you, Sat! Roman Reigns then made his return to SmackDown, and we finally had the development in this Bloodline story that they've been telling us is happening for the last month. Roman gassed up Solo Sikoa, saying he stepped up at Backlash, and then he turned his attention to the Usos. Roman asked if they thought they were just gonna lose the tag titles at WrestleMania, and they weren't gonna talk about it. He asked why they dedicated their rematch to him and then lost, and demanded they apologize. Jimmy was laughing and smiling, obviously not wanting to do it, and Roman pie-faced him, and then Jimmy's look shifted. For a moment, it appeared that he was gonna do something drastic, but Jay stepped in the middle and apologized. Jay Uso is always the one to put his ass in the fire to save his family, and this was no different. Roman then told Paul Heyman to fill them in, and Heyman announced that at Night of Champions, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will defend the tag titles against Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns, as Roman dedicates the match to the best tag team of all time in his opinion, the Wild Samoans. This has certainly been an interesting development. There has been a change in the political relationship between Saudi Arabia and Syria since the last WWE Saudi show, so I guess Sami Zayn can go now. What will be even more interesting is what happens in this here match. Is Roman about to be walking around with 4 belts? I mean, he and Solo don't exactly lose around these parts. A very interesting match indeed, and probably a better use of Roman's time than an arbitrary title defense you know he isn't going to lose. Bayley is backstage and says that maybe she pushed Io Sky too hard, but now she and Dakota are gonna go and win the tag team titles back. The Usos are backstage and are pissed off, looking to pick a fight with the LWO before they walked off, and then we had Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez retaining their WWE Women's Tag Team Championship against Bayley and Dakota Kai. And the story of this match was the continuing disintegration of Damage Control. Things were pretty back and forth for the most part until Io tried to use one of the tag belts to help her team, which which failed when Bayley was shoved into Io and rolled up for the pin. I would say it's probably about time for this trio to start going their separate ways, and I would be more than happy to see Io get a sustained singles push. Pretty Deadly make fun of the Brawling Brutes backstage to set up a match for next week, and then we had Bianca Belair's championship celebration. Are they just not going to address that the belts are on the wrong show? I really thought they were just going to drop the show names from the titles, but I don't know. Sure. Bianca didn't get a chance to say anything as Asuka made her entrance and sprayed the mist in Bianca's eyes. That was the whole segment, so I guess we're getting a WrestleMania rematch real soon. We then had our main event as AJ Styles punched his ticket to the finals to face Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, defeating Bobby Lashley here on SmackDown. Hey, AJ Styles and Seth Rollins match at Money in the Bank 2019 was pretty fantastic, and we get to see it again. That's 2 thumbs up. The story of this match was that Lashley had a big old bump on his big old noggin, having been busted open during his triple threat match earlier in the show. Lashley's cut did open itself back up, and commentary did a good job of contextualizing that this is the danger of wrestling multiple matches in one night. The match itself was solid, with Styles dodging a spear and sending Lashley into the ring post as he then hit the phenomenal forearm for the win, as he celebrated with the OC as the show went off the air. And that was SmackDown. Honestly, another really good show. If you ignore how the WWE draft just does not make any sense whatsoever, it makes watching this show much more palatable. This was a wrestling-heavy edition of SmackDown, and I like that, but you also got an actually good Bloodline segment, probably because the main character was actually there this week. This SmackDown gets a 4 out of 5. That just about wraps things up for me. Yesterday, we crowned a WrestleTalk champion in the PFK World Cup to determine the best in the world at WWE 2K23, as Dan Layton advanced to the tournament finals. That tournament is going on right now as the best of No Rolls Barred try to etch their name in history and raise the PFK World Cup to determine the best in the world at WWE 2K23. You can go right now and watch our live stream over on Parts Unknown and see which NRB dude or dudette will reign victorious.